Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, we're going to be going over the market, going over what has happened, what we can expect moving forward and all that good stuff. So as usual, if you guys enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button as it does help a lot. And on top of that, again, remember, this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. Make your own decisions and do your own research. So Tesla looking like it's going to be closing the day at 0.72% in the green, putting us at pretty much just shy over $195 compared to the market itself. Tesla in line slash maybe underperformance very slightly, but again, for the most part, nothing unusual for either side. So let's talk about it. What has happened? What we can expect going from here. So, we are getting that bit of a rally that we talked about. It's not too shabby at all, but you can see that, we are getting pretty much very close to this level. The RSI is much, much lower. So that's something to consider. That's, potential bearish divergence setting up there. So, we'll see how that actually comes into fruition. Of course, it's still a little too early to tell in my opinion, but that's again, something to still kind of slowly keep in mind. Right now, the market's kind of going sideways for the most part. In all honesty, I mean, pretty much ever since this little rally and gap up here, we've pretty much been going sideways, just sideways ever since Tuesday. So yeah, the majority of this week has been just straight sideways action. Nothing completely, interesting, I guess. But as you can see, at least from my perspective, at least, Tesla keeps trying to get back into this channel, right? Ever since it broke out of this channel right here, you can see it came up to the channel, got rejected, tried to come up again today, pretty much got rejected, and now it's kind of, arguably closing a little bit weak into the actual close. You can see not a lot of strength into the final close, as opposed to yesterday where we did see a lot of strength into the close. As you can see, right, this was the candle, the final 1 hour candle into close, right? You can see a pretty strong 1 hour candle for sure. You can determine that, right? It's closed higher than any of these candles were able to close, and it's kind of peaking its head up, which was good. And that's, in my opinion, what essentially might have caused that little bit of positive momentum, if you will, overall for today's movements, because it did go up all the way up to pretty much $197.50, which isn't too bad, right? Now the flip is almost also true for today's close, where this candle right here is of course the final candle on the 1 hour chart. You can see not the best looking candle, definitely showing some weakness moving into close, which can definitely show some weakness moving into tomorrow. So in other words, I would expect at the very least a gap fill to this level of about 194 almost tomorrow. I would definitely be expecting something like that, and then we'll see what happens with that, but ultimately nothing too crazy. Right now, tomorrow I believe we get, what is it, PCE numbers, I believe, tomorrow or something. There's one of those numbers that's coming out tomorrow, I forgot which one, which can potentially determine the market. It's not like a completely crazy major number like CPI or something like that, but definitely can still influence the markets somewhat, right? And I don't know, I'm seeing a lot of people have a lot of different perspectives. I see a lot of people being very bullish and bearish at the same time, so it feels like no one really knows for sure what exactly is going to happen moving forward. Now, looking at SPYs just super quickly and QQQ super quickly, right, on the daily, you can see some a pretty nice looking candle actually for both of them for the most part, right? Definitely showing the sellers stepping in at first throughout the day, and then the buyers definitely taking control moving into the later half of the day. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Tesla. If anything, you can argue it's quite the opposite, right? Where, the buyers did step in the first half of the day, and then the sellers definitely stepped in the second half of the day and really pushed this thing back down. So, Tesla's definitely looking, in my opinion, at least a little bit weaker than the broader market, and we'll see what that actually comes to, right? Again, if you guys are following, Tesla should be releasing the numbers most likely this coming Sunday over the weekend, of course, for the delivery numbers and production numbers for quarter one. Yeah, for quarter one, and I think the analyst consensus is around 420, and a lot of people I've been seeing are actually projecting like retail trader, or not retail investors, closer to like 430, 440, which would be a pretty big beat. Then, of course, on top of that, it's also like, how much of a beat is that in terms of, financials itself as well. That's going to be important to keep in mind. I personally wouldn't be surprised if Tesla beats, or at least matches 420, if not higher. It's just a matter of, what does that relate to down to the actual bottom line and whatnot, right? Financials. So we'll see, of course. Pretty big stuff coming out for Tesla, and could definitely dictate quite a bit for Tesla here as well. So again, the main thing I'm personally looking at in terms of, trading this and, the levels I am personally looking at are as follows, right? So ultimately, I still personally believe Tesla is a bit more bearish than bullish, mainly because it's not coming into this channel, and it is actually getting rejected 2 times now in a row after breaking down. So that's number one. That to me is not a good sign. Number two, 200 is by far, in my opinion, the most crucial level for Tesla as of right now. If 200, essentially think of it this way, the easiest way to think about it is like this: if Tesla is under 200, In my opinion, it's more bearish than bullish. If Tesla can crack 200, but most importantly, hold. So for instance, closing a 1 hour candle above 200 is a start. If they can start doing those things, then to me, Tesla has short-term flipped bullish. And I definitely think Tesla has a very real possibility to come up to that 210 to 215 level. And then from there, if it does get there, we will, of course, have to fully revisit that. Personally, if it does get there, I believe Tesla will get a substantial rejection up here, which I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it actually comes up to that level, as the market seems like it wants to move upwards a little bit more. The market definitely doesn't seem like it's done just yet. And I wouldn't be surprised if SPY comes up to it like maybe 410, in all honesty, right? That definitely would not shock me whatsoever, as it kind of moves up in this channel. And kind of the same thing more or less with QQQ, more or less, you know, which would give Tesla that extra room to run up to potentially at least 200, if not break through this and potentially go up to about 210 as well, as SPY, for instance, right? So that's definitely something to consider. But again, as long as Tesla is not cracking above 200, I personally think it's a little bit more bearish than bullish. As you can see, the seller is really stepping in, and the way these candles look right now is just a lot of indecision, man. These candles are just very just not good looking candles for either side, actually, to be completely honest with you. Like, sure, this one's a bit more bullish than bearish, sure, this one's a bit more bearish than bullish, but it's just ever so slightly for both of them. Neither of them look extremely bearish, neither of them look extremely bullish. They're all very undecided candles, or undecided rather, indecisive, undecided candles, which to me just signals, like I said, essentially just indecision in Tesla. And it kind of makes sense, mainly because there's a massive collateral coming up over the weekend, being the delivery numbers. So that's something that's most likely, you know, being taken into account over here for Tesla. But again, strictly talking technicals, the rejection into this channel that it keeps trying to do is not a good sign. Staying below 200 still is not a good sign. I would definitely want to see tomorrow somehow Tesla crack above 200, if not at the very least Monday, after the delivery numbers come out over the weekend. To me, Monday is the final straw. If Tesla cannot crack over 200 after the delivery numbers on Monday, to me, that's pretty much going to be like, all right, this thing is most likely ready to go down, like pretty substantially too, right? So that's going to be kind of the main thing I'm waiting for right now. It's kind of in limbo land. So until something like that really cracks, and until we really see some kind of, you know, major movement happen, it's really just kind of going sideways for the most part, as you can see right over here. Just kind of going sideways, not really doing a whole lot, just sideways action, just really doing nothing, right? Let's take a quick look at the Bollinger Band on the 1 hour chart, see what that's kind of, that's not a Bollinger Band. This is the Bollinger Band, right? So you can see in the Bollinger Band, it is kind of expanding, but nothing too crazy. Maybe look at the daily chart, you can see it also kind of expanding, but also nothing too crazy. It is kind of contracting, but slightly expanding after today's movement, but ultimately, nothing really too obvious right now. Tesla is in all honesty, it's kind of boring at the very moment, right? It's just really not doing a whole lot for the past several days. So we'll really need to see the catalyst of delivery numbers over the weekend really pushes things somewhere, right? But again, ultimately, 200 is extremely important, and this level over here around 186-ish, give or take a point or two, extremely important. So that is by far the most important levels, guys. This level here and this level down here, exceptionally important levels. And until one of these levels cracks, Tesla really is just not going to be doing a whole lot, and it's just going to be essentially draining the options, the theta on options. It's just going to be going sideways, you know, and it's really going to be kind of boring. So I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow is kind of the same thing. Maybe we go down, maybe fill this gap at like 189 or something like that, you know, but ultimately stay within this overall sideways channel that we have been finding ourselves in, kind of just doing a whole lot of nothing, most likely doing something like this, right? And then ultimately, once it kind of gets a little bit more, you know, tight, I think finally it'll find a way to move and crack one of these important levels that I've talked about already several times. But ultimately, guys, that's the main thing I'm looking at right now. There's really not a lot to talk about for Tesla because it's not really doing a whole lot, in all honesty. So that's the main thing, right? And the final thing I want to quickly touch on is, of course, the VIX. Speaking of doing nothing, the VIX is just doing nothing as well. And we did talk about back here how I expected VIX to come down to the teens and potentially even as low as the 18 to 17 rather level. And that's kind of what it seems like it's doing. I wouldn't be surprised if it does breach into the 18, potentially even as low as 17 levels for the VIX. But man, once it gets to this level, guys, once it gets somewhere around here especially, I'd be careful being bullish. I'm just saying, that's just my opinion. Could be completely wrong, but almost all the time, or extremely often, whenever the VIX enters any of these levels down here, potentially even lower, even as low as 15, that's just insane, right? But whenever it enters these levels down here, like, you know, kind of mid to high teens, it usually bounces from there, and that usually means bad things for the market. So just keep that in mind as well as you move forward, ladies and gentlemen. But that's the majority of what I am seeing. Again, if you haven't watched the previous videos, if it does crack 200, I believe it'll go up to 210, 215. If it does crack 186-ish, give or take a few points, I believe that move will begin, and at the very least, it'll come down to do a double bottom around the 160s. Excuse me. If not, actually finally make its overall lower leg lower, which will be down to somewhere around this gap fill, sitting around the 145 to 155-ish level. So that's the main thing I'm looking at. That's the main thing I'm doing and seeing. And other than that, I'm just really not doing a whole lot. I'll be honest, I'm not even looking at Tesla that much right now. I'm just kind of doing other things in general, really, life related. So it's kind of boring. We're waiting for a national move to happen. Hopefully the deliveries is the catalyst over the weekend that will cause Tesla to finally get out of this little sideways channel it's in next week. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.